Hey, this is Thunder. Ever think about what maybe a twin soul was? I'm sure a lot of people think about that. I mean, all the relationships out there in the world, and probably a lot of them are having difficulties at certain times, don't all relationships? And so a person might likely start to reflect on what a twin soul might be, because they have been told by various sources that twin souls are somebody that you can hook up with, and there's a good match with, and all these kind of ideas. Okay. And they might get tired of their relationship. Oh, I wish I could meet my twin soul or whatever. So back, I'd say probably around 2009, 2010, I got an inspirational idea for a book. And the book was to be based on twin souls. And the twin souls were of the indigenous Native American culture, whatever you want to call it. Now, when I did that book, I kind of got inspired because I was thinking about the same things that a lot of people think about. And every time I write or do something like with one of my books, I channel. I go to the source. I let the energy flow through me, and that allows ideas to come up. Just like when you're a musician and you're on stage and you're channeling that pure energy, it comes out in your limbs and in your hearing and everything. It adjusts you to a certain, let's say, frequency. So I like to tune into those frequencies, let's say when I'm writing a book, or when I'm writing a blog, or when I'm doing something of that nature. Now let me get to the point here about the twin souls. So I had a download, what I call a download, of the concept that I wanted to use for twin souls in this book. And the book is called Emergence. Now, the thought that came to my mind, the book starts off where there's two spirits, or actually just one spirit. We'll get to the two in a minute. But there's one spirit in the universe that's floating around that is getting ready to come into some mother's womb. And basically, the concept is of when does a spirit enter into the womb, and when does the embryo become activated, and all that kind of thing. So it takes all that into consideration. So here you have this one spirit that may be reincarnated. Okay, reincarnated. The concept, the Hindu religious or mythological concept of reincarnation, which a lot of people are into. They have no idea that they're into it. They just heard about it and they're into it. So this one spirit is floating around in the universe, and two mothers in two different locations, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, are getting ready to give birth, or they're in that, let's say they're in that cycle where the spirit is descending down into the womb and becoming part of the embryo or part of the future person. So here's the spirit, and the spirit splits in two. the spirit splits in two, and half of the spirit goes to one mother, and half of the spirit goes to the other mother. It's almost like a symbiotic process or whatever. And so you have the one spirit that split into two spirits. Now, let's think about the concept of the twin soul again. Let's not lose that idea. And this is going to be pretty amazing where I'm going to go with this. You got one portion of the spirit, or one half, or one part going into one womb, and another part going into another womb, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. So as the babies develop and they get born and all that stuff, they grow up. Now when this when this spirit splits in half and goes to the different embryos, it's kind of like a yin-yang thing. If you've ever seen the yin-yang sign, which is one side is black and one side is white, and on one side, on the black side, you have a white dot, and on the white side, you have a black dot, and this is a continually churning process, the fish chasing its tail. So when this spirit split off, one became a female and one became a male, okay, because that is something that is part of the universe anyway. It's part of the universe, okay? This concept of the male-female and the goddess, excuse me, is part of the creation as we know it. So if you have a spirit that splits off into two portions, and one's a female and one's a male, that would be a perfectly natural thing to happen. Now when the spirit split off and went into the male and female on the different coasts, they also brought apart, the female brought that little dot, okay, that's a part male, brought that with her, and the male brought a little dot that's black with him, okay. So consequently, in this book that I wrote, these two people are born on different coasts, but one of them, the male, happens to gravitate towards the West Coast and meet in Arizona, okay. Now, when these two people meet, it's almost electrifying. It's a situation where they kind of recognize each other and feel it on a much higher level almost immediately, almost to the point where they're in almost a shock, okay? But it's a good shock. It's a feel-good shock. Now, what would happen, do you think, when these two people met? What kind of situations would arise? What kind of earmarks, or let's say telltale signs, would happen to give them an indication of that they were really one spirit? Now let's stop, let's pause right here for a minute and just leave the story there. But let's also think about another concept here. And the other concept would be, and I've done videos on this before, all of us have the male-female energy within us. All of us have the yin and the yang, the god, the goddess, All of us have that in us. So in reality, let's say a spirit didn't split off, it would still have that in it. An individual spirit would still have the half that was the female and the half that was the male, or a predominant male or a predominant female, but would still have the other energy. If you were a female, you would still have that male energy. And if you were a male, you would still have that female energy. And so if you looked at it in a certain way, excuse me, if you looked at it in a certain way, that male energy that is in the female's body could be her twin, or the female energy that's in the male's body could be his twin soul, twin soul. So the concept of a spirit existing and then splitting off is not that far-fetched. In fact, it really rings true as far as what a soulmate might be. You have to contemplate this, and you have to think about it, and you have to, think outside the envelope and think about all the forces in nature and the supreme Godhead, which is male and female, and all the forces in nature. And you will come to the conclusion that this is entirely possible. So when somebody says, I'm going to meet my twin soul, one concept could be just what I explained, that you're meeting your actual twin. But the DNA wouldn't exactly be the same, because it would be from a different lineage, of a different ancestral lineage. So let's say the girl ended up in Arizona and she was a Hopi, and the guy ended up in another tribe, and he was Lakota. You would have these two indigenous people in different parts of the country, and all of a sudden they would, as soon as they came on the earth, they would feel this almost magnetic force pulling them together. They may not even realize the gravity of the situation until they met, at which point there would be an awakening, or something would trigger in them an emergence. And that was the title of my book, Emergence, because it had not only that aspect of emergence where you emerge into finding out who you really are and what your destiny is and why you're supposed to be with this person, but I also coupled it with the Hopi emergence, where the fourth world emerges into the fifth world, almost a dimensional thing. So the other concept, the other concept of the twin soul, which isn't in this book but is possible, I tend to go with this one for the real twin soul. There is the theory of reincarnation, and you knew somebody in a past life, and they were your mother or your father or this person or that person that you knew, and you guys came together. Some people call that a twin soul. I don't really go with that thought. I go with the thought that I just described. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And it was channeled to me during a period of time when I didn't even have a mate, or I didn't have a girlfriend, or I didn't have a spouse, whatever. And so I was going deeply within myself, and that's when I got into Tantra, which is something I've talked about in other videos, and that's when I really got deep into meditation, energy flows, the Kundalini energy, the yin and the yang energy, the male and the female within us. And so the glimpses came to my mind, and I used my own name in the book for the male character because there was a lot of similarities to things that I had experienced earlier on in life in my young teens and stuff. I used that concept, and I used the female character's name as Natalie, but in the Native American tongue, her name would have been Wikvaya, which is a Hopi name, which means one who brings. One who brings. Think about that. One who brings. And the male's character's name would be Wakia, which means thunder. So these two people had a destiny. These two people had a destiny to meet up and culminate an emergence of sorts. Now let's take this even further here, because this is all part of the book and part of my concept, actually. The book came from the concept, not the concept from the book, okay? The concept came first. So as these two people get together, they actually meet in a circumstance where they're grown up. They're about 18 years old. And the dude comes tripping out of a classroom one day, going home to lunch to eat his mother's food, to have a good meal at home. He bops around the corner, and who does he run into? Three thugs that are hassling this girl. And, of course, this person is a special person, because if you read the book, you find out that he's tapped into all kinds of things like the Akashic record, and that he has dreams and visions. And so when he bops around the corner, he runs into this girl that's having a little bit of a problem with these guys. They're harassing her and pulling her hair and threatening her. And what does he do? He takes them out. His martial arts skills are beyond normal. This is part of the book. His martial arts skills take off right then and there. He just goes into a different state of mind called Mushin, channels all this energy, and takes these guys out. Does he kill them? No, because he's a teenager and these are fellow classmates or whatever. He doesn't kill them, but he incapacitates them so that they can't do any more harm. So this is the first incident in the book where these two twin souls run into each other. And he is overwhelmed when he looks over, because he didn't see the woman at all at first. All he saw was the three guys. And they actually confronted him when he came around the corner. So he really didn't get a chance to see her. But what happened was, inevitably what happened was, it came to light that he saved her ass. And she started talking to him, and that kindled the relationship right there, okay? Immediately, that kindled a relationship. And from there, it's like, it just takes off. So these two characters in the book, Wakia, the man, and Wikvaya, the woman, team up, and they realize that they have some kind of destiny. And that destiny has to do with actually the emergence of the world and world situation, and being wisdom keepers, and having secret tablets. I mean, it goes on into all kinds of different beautiful things. It also branches off into lovemaking, okay? It branches off into the area of Tantra and sacred sex and coming to a union in that area, okay? Coming to a union. And everything in the book that I wrote has to do with shamanism, or it has to do with esoteric philosophy, or it has to do with Hindu philosophy, or it has to do with Hopi philosophy. It has to do with shamanism overall, is what it has to do with. And it also has to do with all kinds of things that are connected with the esoteric and the shamanistic, ancient cultures, ancient practices, ancient techniques, including the Tantra technique and tracking techniques, and there is all kinds of things in this jam-packed into this small book, and I call it a shaman's Bible hidden as a novel. Because everything that I have learned through my shamanistic practices, and all the energy work that I have done, and all the research that I have done, and a lot of the things that I have succeeded in my life, passions, let's say, like the martial arts and flying and tracking and being out in nature, that all comes into play in the book. Now see, the beautiful thing about the book is that these people start doing these things together, shooting, taking hikes, taking trips, making love, bantering with each other. Now, what would you think that two twin souls would do that were on the same page? Let's look at this twin soul thing again. The twin soul thing is, what would be the inevitable, or what would be the perfect, let's say, let me think about this. What would be the perfect dialogue? What would be the perfect interaction between twin souls, a male and a female? Well, you would want things like, something happens to you in life and you can't wait to get home and talk about what that incident might have meant, or how each other related to that incident. Lots of communication here, continual communication, okay, about their purpose in life, their destiny to be wisdom keepers and wake people up from the entrapment that they're in society and in the world as a whole. Wake the sleepers up. In fact, I coined the name sleepers and keepers for this book, and Natalie and Thunder talk about it all the time. They talk this and they talk that, and they say, well, yeah, but what is our purpose, and what's the opportunities we have here, and what can we do together as a team? It's always a team thing. So the woman coins the term oneness. She calls her mate oneness. You're my oneness. Well, that's like the whole concept right there in a nutshell of the oneness of the original spirit and the oneness between them, and how basically they are a reflection of one another. They're a reflection of one another. And when they make love, they merge and they become one another. Okay, they actually become one another. Or when they go out tracking or shooting, they're always talking and they're always sharing and they're always laughing. And here's another concept that I'm sure people won't miss in the book. The concept of eroticism and passion for each other. The girl in the book doesn't let a minute go by without being saying some kind of naughty thing. And of course, they already came to the conclusion of what naughty is and what naughty isn't, and what their sacred sex was and what their playful sex was. But it was always a fun thing. It was always like constantly trying to seduce one another, constantly trying to use that erotic energy, that erotic passion, that base chakra, primal energy, primal sexual energy, always letting that flow between them in a spontaneous manner, okay? And always being like they were in bed, but they're not. Always having that erotic, passionate feeling and arousal between them as an energy, almost like an energy drink or whatever. It's something to keep you going and laughing and constantly bantering back and forth and constantly saying little naughty things to one another. And even when the man starts teaching her some of the martial arts and he starts doing some Tai Chi, or he might grab her and put her in a little joint lock or whatever, they might practice their martial arts, but every time they touched, it was electrifying. Every time they touched, it was done with a feeling of passion. Every time they talked, it was done with a feeling of passion. Nothing got stale. Nothing ever gets stale. So I hope I'm giving you insight as to what a twin soul relationship is. It's none other than almost like the person knows what you're going to say before you say it. The person is so tuned into you that they are you. That's what a twin soul is. And it's a joyful, loving, always joyful, loving. And if you do get into like a little spat like they do in the book, it doesn't last long. It lasts for a fraction of a second until they're both laughing about how ridiculous it is. Or one of the people will make like in the book, the male gets into a little spat with her in the truck, and he notices right away that the vibe that comes from it isn't good. So what does he start doing? He starts talking naughty to her. Because she likes naughty. She's a passionate sexual person, and he starts talking naughty to her. Next thing you know, they're laughing. Pulled them right out of it. So that's what twin souls do. They help each other. They complement each other. They, in their sexual practices and then in their meditational practices, they raise each other's frequency to a very high level, which can be done. And I have explained that in previous videos. So as the book goes on, they meet. He meets her parents, which are Hopi, and then they have a connection with the Hopi people. And then there's all kinds of things that are incorporated into the book, shamanistic things about Hopi prophecy and the scrolls, the Hopi scrolls, and how they can work together as a team with the Hopi nation. All kinds of things are revealed in this book, and if you go through the book, there's just numerous. You would almost need a glossary. If there are things in the book that you need to look up, that would be good. But I just wanted to touch on the twin soul aspect here and put it into the context of my book, which is available, okay, to you, anybody that wants to. And let me show you the cover of it. Here's a quick view of it. Can't get the whole book in for some reason here on this little preview, but Emergence by Thunderhands. Picture of yours truly and an explanation of what's going on here. And the explanation is: a gifted young native man meets a beautiful Hopi woman who is his twin soul. Their sacred union sends them into a series of unusual events and changes. As their love deepens, the realization of their destiny becomes entwined with Hopi prophecy, shamanism, and other worlds. They emerge into a force beyond comprehension and become wisdom keepers. The knowledge they would pass on to others would change their life forever. This book, of course, can be purchased on my website, Spirit of Crazy Horse. The link is in the show notes. I'll put that link in there. And if you want this book, I have 3 books. One is an award-winning book on spirituality, and this book that I just described is called Emergence. So you can either go to Gumroad and purchase the PDF, the electronic version, for $8.50, or you can go to Amazon and get the paperback. Or up here you can also go click on this picture and it'll take you to my site, Gumroad, and you can download the PDF version right then and there. Or if you want to donate to this channel, you can donate $10 and I'll send you the book through the email. Real easy. So anyway, I hope you liked that little journey that we went on today. And if you want to learn more about twin souls and more about any of the things that I talked about and the concepts there, and just get a general feel, because this is a novel, this is a story. I've had a lot of people tell me, oh man, this should be a movie. This should be a movie. And it may well be, because I am now talking to different people on that very thing happening. So this could end up being a independent film or whatever. But anyway, I'll leave it there today, and hope you enjoyed this short video, and until I see you again, adios.